Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler. On this third day of August, we're in a new month here now. We're about 10 days into NFL training camp, and it looks like as of today, that Shedeur Sanders has the edge over Deshaun Watson in the quarterback battle up in Cleveland. I'll talk a little bit about that. Plus a few other training camp notes that I've read over the X app, perhaps, and give you my opinion. Now, also, listen, the NFC East, that spent a lot of time, probably too much time, be honest with you, going over the NFC East, reading over, got a full in-depth analysis, going to give you every team's breakdown and prediction for that conference as well. Also, I'll give you the Big Ten championship game. Didn't get a chance to do it last week. We'll do that today, folks. So, again, welcome to the program. Got plenty to talk about tonight. I'll be back here momentarily, and we will hit the ground running here on the Real Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program. All righty then. So, I want to I always do this when I come on the program, give a big shout out to my Uber riders for following me here on the social media links here. Shout out to my man Brady. I want to say Brady is a South Carolina fan, and I'm hoping to bring him on the program next week, about 30 minutes in, something like that. Hopefully next Monday, bring him on the program, talk South Carolina football. Listen, they've got Lador Sellers there, the quarterback. Could be a first-round pick. Been talks of him being one of the more talented players in college football coming out now. It's a very tough class here. We'll see how it comes out. Talk about the schedule with him, see how he thinks that team will play out. Hopefully he'll come on next week. Haven't got back to me, but he has asked to come on the program. And we'll talk about that sometime next week. Okay. There's a lot of storylines going on in the NFL right now. Baker Mayfield's going to play in the last year of his deal. My thing is Mayfield is a guy that is, he's lost some help there. They still got Ibuka there at receiver. Vitavia's holding out. I told you I thought Todd Bowles would be one of those coaches that are likely to get fired. It depends on how well he plays. He does play better with a chip on his shoulder. He has a lot to play for, but he is a limited player, and I've said that the whole time about Mayfield. Really, they've been in a very bad division. He has got everything out of his talent, per se. I thought he was overdrafted at number 1 overall. Remember, he was drafted the same draft with Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. I mean, just I want to say Sam Darnold was in that draft. Darnold's won a Super Bowl now. We thought Darnold was going to be a bust. So Allen's been MVP. Lamar Jackson been MVP. He's not been a bust per se, but that's a big storyline going around. He's going to play on this contract, and quite frankly, I'm not going to pay this guy $55 million. There's just no way. I would punt on that contract. Only reason it works is when he's making less money. So we'll see what happens, how that plays out. Like I said, that's a bold prediction, one of my bold predictions that I'm kind of getting a lot of heat for with some of my bold predictions. Some of you fans on TikTok, I see your comments. You fans don't like me talking about, Lynch there getting fired there. was it John Lynch, the general manager there, and I love John Lynch. I mean, he's a great player, but he's had a lot of misses there in San Francisco on personnel, and now they've got Ricky Pearsall with the season-ending injury there. That's not good. They did bring back Deebo Samuel. We'll see how that works out, but that's another older player there. So again, a lot of pushback for that. Little bit of storylines of Brandon Ayuk situation. I'll talk about that last week as well. But the big buzz over the weekend and coming in today is, you've got Deshaun Watson coming back from Achilles injury there. It's a big battle between him up there in Cleveland with Shedeur Sanders. And I'm getting a lot of clips here of Shedeur just throwing a lot of darts up there up in Cleveland at training camp there. And listen, you got him, second-year player on his rookie contract, per se. And, I've read this off Jordan Schultz right here. He says, Shedeur has unleashed an all-time deep ball here. On time. I think all time. He put on time. This Jordan Schultz is a reporter here. And to KC Concepcion, prior to injury, Concepcion got injured. I don't know how bad or significant that injury is. Nothing has came out about that. But that's just some of the quotes that I'm reading out of training camp there. Carlos, my man Carlos, the Mad New Yorker, said this, I want to say back in April. He thought this team was going to be a big breakout team that's going to potentially win the AFC North. Listen, they got a lot of young talent there. They've hit a lot of draft picks here, and they've got I put another post here, and I'm trying to see if I can find it. It was about remember, Jared Verse was traded. He was traded there for Myles Garrett, by the way. He's got a lower leg injury. He's already somewhat banged up. I think it's more precautionary than anything. I still think the Rams are the big, heavy favorite. That's no hot take, really. But there was already a story about Underdog NFL posted this on the X app. He says, this is, like I said, Jared Verse, very good player, 25 years old, a trending upward defensive end here that's not getting paid anything, still on his rookie contract playing up there with the Browns here. Here's a comment here. Jared Verse on communication with the secondary. It's going to be a pretty decent team. He says, I told Denzel, talking about Denzel Ward, they're very good cornerback. And them boys on the back end, I said, hey, y'all, cover for 2 seconds. Y'all can stop covering after that. Just look back. The ball will be either out or the play is going to be over with. The very talented Jared Verse there with Mason Graham, that defensive tackle there they got out of Michigan a couple of years ago, that's really lived up to his billing so far. A young, hungry Cleveland Browns team that it looks like the defense is coming together. Now, it's just training camp. We haven't seen any games yet. But you're starting to see things really look good for them right now. If you're a Browns fan, you really want a young guy that's on a rookie contract like a Shedeur Sanders to just flat out win this job. Now, Watson came back, played. He's healthy, but he has thrown a couple of picks in practice here. He's probably not getting off that enough torque off that foot that he had his Achilles surgery on. He's had some setbacks and whatnot, but it looks like from what I'm seeing that Shedeur has the edge. He's the younger player. He's on the rookie contract. So that's something to kind of follow. I want to say they play here on about the 15th or 16th. I want to say they play the Bears in the preseason. That's going to be the best preseason battle. That and the Kyler Murray, and, of course, J.J. McCarthy. Murray doing about what I thought he would do, Well, like I said, he would do in camp and he would do early in the season. He's going to make some big, long throws. He's going to wow the crowds. He's already wowing the crowds. I'm talking about Kyler Murray with the Minnesota Vikings. I'm watching some of these clips. He's going to hit the deep ball really well. But I think McCarthy overall is probably going to be a better intermediate throw. That's the stuff you have to do to win games here. I think McCarthy eventually win this job out. Nobody else is saying that. But early on, like he has done everywhere he's went, particularly in Arizona, talking about Kyler Murray, he's going to look good early. I predicted him to look good early. I think he'll look good the first 5-6 weeks in the regular season. I wouldn't want to play the Vikings early because of their defense just being directed by one of the highest paid coordinators in the game, and well worth so, Brian Flores. They're going to play really well, and I think he's going to be able to. He'll be healthy early in the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season, and he'll look good. He'll get banged up. McCarthy eventually come in there and play, and I think he'll take another step forward. Could be wrong. I own it if I am wrong. I was wrong about Deshaun Watson signing this big contract, and he's going to take off with the Browns. I was wrong about that. So we'll see how that plays out as of right now, folks. Okay? All right. Now, boy, I love all these clips here from like Rookie Watch and your Jordan Schultz's of the world. I'm seeing here on the X app here and commenting as I'm going along here. But this is what Rookie Watch said, going back to Shedeur Sanders one more. Is starting to run away with the quarterback title, QB1, early on in camp. Yesterday, Sanders reportedly had one of his most significant practices of all time. Shedeur once again led all quarterbacks in completion, 13 and 4 touchdowns. The Browns sophomore quarterback has been putting on a show at every practice. That's what this quarterback, well, now sometimes they kind of overhype things. We'll see. Like I said, can't wait. I think it's Saturday, the 15th. Oh, it's not this Saturday. What is today? I think it'll be next Saturday, week from this Saturday. 15th or 16th, they play the Bears. Cannot wait to see that preseason game battle. That's going to be interesting to see that. May give you an indication of who may play week 1 coming up in September. Okay, now, got that out of the way. Let's talk some football, folks. Talk about the NFC East. Now, listen, if something happens between now and the end of training camp, I may adjust these. I may very well adjust these particular standings here. I think the NFC East will be highly competitive between the Giants and the Eagles and Cowboys. As I said, Dan Quinn, I think, I'll talk about him in just a little bit. But since in relation to this book, I'm just going to go the way this book is written in order, and then I'll give you my final prediction and standings of these particular teams. Some of you are going to be excited. Some of you are not going to be excited. But I'll start off with the Dallas Cowboys. And, folks, I'm going to do something a little bit different this year. I'm going to clip off every single team and give a preview of every single team and what I've got going on here. Listen, I always own it. If these predictions are wrong, I'll tell you. I'll own it at the end of the season. Man, I was way off with this team. I was way off with that team. Or this team, I had them picking first in the draft, ended up making the playoffs. One year I had Todd Bowles getting fired years ago. The first year, they ended up winning a division, so I had to eat that, And other times I've had the Buffalo Bills winning the Super Bowl, and I had to eat that. Same thing with the Bengals. So, okay, now the Dallas Cowboys, this Lindy's Magazine's picking them to finish second in the division. Okay, now let me go back to their they fired Matt Eberflus last season. I didn't realize this, but their defense was historically bad last year. One of the worst defenses of all time at any level. Here's my thing, though. So they fired Matt Eberflus, but they hired this guy, this very young guy, 34. I made a comment about this before about their young defensive coordinator here. And he's like a secondary coach here from, see if I got his name here. Yeah, Christian Parker. He's like a secondary coach from the Eagles. Again, 34 years old. Do you want this guy taking on a project like the Dallas Cowboys, who were just awful at times from a defensive standpoint there? Now, listen, they have made some big pushes here. I made some notes here, but I don't know why Jerry Jones wouldn't add an experienced defensive coordinator. There's guys like Leslie Frazier that was out there. Okay, this Christian Parker guy, like I said, he's never been a coordinator before. He hasn't even been a secondary coach that long. Now, of course, he's working under Vic Fangio, comes over from the Eagles. Kudos to him for getting a coordinator job at that age. Now, hey, listen, sometimes coordinators turned out to be very good coaches and end up being head coaches. They're just very smart football minds. Sean McVay comes into play when you think about he was hired really young as a head coach, and he's one of the best coaches in the NFL. Okay, now that being said, like I said, Leslie Frazier, former Bills defensive coordinator in 21, they was first in defense, actually. Believe it or not, I went back and looked at that. So when he's had players, and they've got some big name players that they brought in, Rashawn Gary they brought in the offseason at defensive end. They made the mid-season trade for the Jets, Quentin Williams, a defensive tackle. They drafted Caleb Downs, which is a very good player there, safety there. Man, he's going to be one of their best safeties since maybe a Roy Williams, somebody like that. Some of you older Cowboy fans remember Roy Williams, University of Texas player, I want to say. Played at safety there for a number of years now. But they didn't want to do that. They give this guy with no experience, and it just questions, well, I don't know if the defense is going to get that much better. I know they drafted also with the 23rd pick. What is this guy's name? Malachi Lawrence there from UCF. Nick Saban was called on a hot mic saying, man, this guy's a reach. Remember that during the draft? That clip went viral there. So I'm just not really sure. That being said, yes, their offense at one point was the number one offense in the NFL last year. George Pickens will be on a franchise tag this year. He's going to be playing his guts out to get that big contract. And, of course, you got him and CeeDee Lamb. Dak is playing his best football of his career with Ferguson. So they got a decent offensive line here. They can score with any of them, the best of them in the league. But, listen, I went back and looked after they made that trade there. And after they made that trade last year, which was around the trade deadline sometime in November, per se, you look at their last few games here, they gave up 28 Thanksgiving Day. They did win that game, but I want to say they still gave up 28 to Kansas City, 44 to Detroit the next week, 34 and a loss to Minnesota the week after that, 34 after that to the LA Chargers with no offensive line. Washington, they did beat Washington 30-23. And, so it's just bad game after bad game. You said, well, they've added more players. They added Gary, and they've added Caleb Daniels, and they've got this other first-round pick. So I look back at their actual starters and returning starters from last year on that defense. It was really bad for Cowboys. 7 players are still back from last year's team. So, and then you've got this very young Christian Parker, the 34-year-old, extremely young. You could have brought back Wade Phillips if Wade Phillips is still coaching. I know he is an old guy, 70-something year, maybe 80. You could have brought him back just to coach defense. He's going to help you with the run defense. There's a number of coaches that Jerry Jones and that ownership could have went out and got. So I don't know why they did this. I'm just questioning this coordinator here, So I'm just not sure. How this Cowboys team is going to turn out. I thought maybe that the defense will be much better, but I'm just not so sure about that. So here's the schedule as I put it out here. And they were 7-9-1. Remember, they had that one tie last year. So this year, I think they're going to lose opening weekend. I know Dak plays well against the Giants, but I think they'll lose that opening weekend against the Giants here. And listen, they got to play at Houston, #1 defense in the league last year, player for player. At Green Bay, they don't match up well against Green Bay. We know how that goes. That could be a potential revenge game, but I got them actually winning that game because they have extra time off October 18th. Then you got them playing at Philadelphia on a Monday night. They do have Philly. I got them split with Philly, but they got to play at Seattle, at the Rams, best team in the league, likely. Jacksonville this time of year. A very good Jacksonville team. Remember, they won 13 games. They got to play Baltimore and Rio de Janeiro, which I think is in Brazil. Kind of a wild game there. So all that, after you shuffle out all that, playing these NFC North teams, along with the NFC West, okay, I've got this team. Did I say AFC North? Let's see. Yeah, Baltimore. No, it's just one AFC North team. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Check that. The NFC West, they definitely played the whole division there. And some NFC South, AFC South teams as well with Tennessee. All that being said, I've got them going 10-7. So they're going to be a borderline, what do you call it? They'll be a wild card level team. That's because I think, it just depends on how – maybe this guy's a star coach. Maybe he's a superstar, this Christian Parker here. But I'm just not sure if they got enough players. The problem is you've got these young – I know Caleb Downs is going to be a good player, but he's a rookie player. You want a good veteran coach coaching him. You don't want a guy that's that young coaching him that's running the kind of defense. Running their Cowboys defense. So, okay, all right. So they're the first team I picked in the NFC East. I got them finishing 10-7, which will, if you're a Cowboys fan, hey, listen, we get hot at the right time. Things start to click. Very good offense. Very good offensive line. Dak playing his best football. Should be. You're paying him $60 million a year. George Pickens playing on that franchise tag. Could be balling out of control. We'll see. So bookmark that in your head, Cowboy fans. I got them going 10-7. Okay, the next is on the Giants here. Listen, folks, the Giants made so many good moves. After I did a deep dive into their offseason acquisitions, I don't think I'm being hyperbolic here. I'm the most impressed with their offseason moves of any team in the NFC East. And I was very impressed with some of the moves Cowboys done other than that coordinator. And, of course, what the Eagles done, but doing addition and subtraction there. But let me talk about this Giants team. Much more impressed than what I even expected. Although I knew some of this. We talked about some of this stuff on the program going back to draft night. And, of course, the offseason with them hiring of John Harbaugh there, a Super Bowl winning coach, bringing him in. And his new coaching staff here to coach this team up. But listen, folks, they had a good offseason in free agency as well, not just adding players like Isaiah Likely. They had a linebacker, Tremaine Edmonds here. Darnell Mooney at wide receiver. I know they lost Wardell Robertson to Tennessee in free agency. Mooney, one of the more underrated players there. But you've got a guy like Isaiah Likely to pair him with Theo Johnson here, the other tight end. I love that tandem they got set up there already here. And you add the fact that they actually traded – they actually got a high first-round pick for Derek – a number 10 pick overall for Dexter Lawrence there. And being able to take a guy – like a Arvell Reese there with that fifth pick there. Arguably, some would say he was the best player in this draft. Okay? So you start to look at all this, and the fact that with that 10th pick, they end up taking this tackle here. Let me make sure I got his name right. I don't know why I cannot get this guy's name right each time that I take him. But yeah, Francisco Mayoga. He was arguably the best tackle in the draft. They get him all the way down to 10th. He's a total wall from Miami. He can play right. They've got him listed as a guard right now. So they've actually brought in some. They brought in some help there. Francis Mayoga here. But so you've added that depth there on the offensive line. You're going to give the quarterback here. You're going to give the quarterback here a lot more room here. Jackson Dart here to throw the football. He's going to have time on his hands. They're going to be able to run the ball at ease. Scatterboo's back. There's no hints of him being injured anymore. Malik Neighbors is back on a limited basis, but he's back. You look at that offensive line. You look at the additions that they've added on that offensive line, and the fact that their defense per se. So let me go ahead and read some of these players here on this defensive side of the ball. Okay, I know they lost Dexter Lawrence at the defensive tackle, but I do like the fact that they brought in Shelby Harris, DJ Reader there. And listen, Abdul Carter had some maturity issues early on. Started to see him settle in at the end of last season there. I think players make their biggest jump from year 1 to year 2. He's going to start to play like that top dog that was looked at by a lot of prognosticators as the best player in the 2024 draft, okay? So you start to see Abdul Carter. I think he's going to settle in and play really well. You start to see a guy like Kayvon Thibodeaux settle in, play really well. He's on a contract year, playing for a new contract. Then you've got a guy like Brian Burns, who's already played well, very consistent. That's the guys you can move in and around throughout your defensive line there, okay? Not to mention the fact that you got a phenomenal player at Arvell Reese that they took with that 5th pick. He's going to be able to play out in coverage. He's going to play on either side of the end. He's going to be what you call like an ambidextrous type of player. You can play him on the right side. You can play him on the left side. Someone that can use both hands, ambidextrous. Some of you don't know what that word means, but you're going to be able to move these guys around here. And I do think, and listen, even if Shelby Harris, and I know these guys, Harris and DJ Ritter at defensive tackle, I know that they are older players. If they don't seem to have what they're looking at, what the Giants like, I could see the Giants being aggressive and going out and getting a guy like a Vitavia, who is very he's got some issues with his contract down in Tampa. This guy's a big run-stopping machine. If they can make the right deal, because you've got a guy, you've got your quarterback on a rookie contract, they might make that move, okay? Lawrence said he just simply didn't want to listen, okay? So they moved him on to Cincinnati, okay? So now if you bring in a guy like a Vitavita, and I don't know if they'll do that, they might. This could be a very good defense, okay? And not to mention that they've added safety Javon Holland here. Very good player out of Miami. Nobody's really thinking about him. So, you've got a lot of moving parts here on this team. Now, I'm not in love with their defensive coordinator there. That is a former Titan, Denard Wilson, former Titans defensive coordinator. Titans were about 15th against the run. They had some missed tackles last year. Not in love with him, just like I was in love with Parker there at Philadelphia. But he will be an upgrade on that side of the ball, per se. Yeah, they were 29th last year in total defense. But you're looking at some of the this could be a Seattle type of day. I do think that they'll make a big jump this year. They will be comparable to last year's Seattle defense. I do think they'll be that good. And I like that extra depth that they've added on their offensive line. I really do. I'm telling you, this Giants team has a lot of moving parts. And listen, they lost a lot of close games last year. Remember last year when they went up to Philadelphia and beat them 34-17 at home on that Thursday night game. Okay. They came back strong at the very end. They beat the Raiders 34-10, and they beat Dallas 34-17 at the very end. You're starting to see Dart settle down. Now under Harbaugh, he's going to be way settled down because he's going to have a much better line, and the defense is going to be that much more better. So, like I said, a lot of big additions, a lot of young players. They've got, I want to say they have, 3 top 5 players on defense, on their defensive line that were selected in the top 5 in the NFL draft there, if I'm not mistaken. I know the top 10. I want to say Thibodeau was drafted pretty high as well. He's going to have a lot to prove. So this is going to be a good team on both sides of the ball. Remember they had Denver on the ropes? Players take their biggest leap from year 1 to year 2. So I've got this team. Listen, I got to win an opening week against Dallas. I've got the New York Giants going 11-5, okay? There was a period there for a number of years, I want to say 20-something years, if I'm not mistaken, that a different team has won the NFC East. It's been like that for years and years. I know the Eagles broke that streak a few years ago, but I really do think this team is going to play well, better than I originally expected them to play. Love their draft, love their offseason, love the coach, love the head coach. Not entirely in love with the coaching staff, but yeah, they were 29th. I see them big turnaround on both sides of the ball. They're going to be able to run the ball better. They're going to be able to stop the ball, run better, even without a Dexter Lawrence here. Big things coming out of the New York Giant land. 11-5 is the record that I have them coming in at. And they brought over Dennis Johnson, by the way, to help their gap assignment on the defensive side of the ball. Made that note. And by the way, they got Matt Nagy as their offensive coordinator. Remember, folks, Matt Nagy went to the playoffs with Mitch Trubisky as his quarterback with the Raiders, okay? I think this is a very good coaching staff. I'm telling you, Nagy's pretty good coordinator. Might not be a great head coach, but, pretty decent quarterback, good coordinator, good with quarterbacks here. That's the former assistant there from Andy Reid with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Giants looking really good here, folks. The Mad New Yorker will love that clip. Okay, now moving right along to the Eagles. Miss Lindy's Magazine's picking the Eagles to finish first in their division, okay? All right, I've said this before and I'll say it again. By the way, they've got one of their biggest off-season acquisition was the trade they made with the signing here of Jonathan Greenland after losing Jalen Phillips a free agency. They acquired from the Vikings Greenland, who was slow by shoulder surgery last year, but had 12-plus sacks in 23 and 24. They've also added Marcus Hollywood Brown at wide receiver. And, of course, the big move is the A.J. Brown trade over this summer, okay? But they drafted Malachi Lemon out of USC. I thought that and I said this back in April, I want to reiterate this. I actually thought that he was going to go much sooner. Remember, they made the trade with the Cowboys, an in-division team. Usually that don't happen, but they did make that trade. And they got Malachi Lemon to pair him with Devontae Smith, with Dallas Goedert, with the second-round pick, Eli Sowers, out of Vanderbilt. Tall, lanky, athletic tight end. I could see them using their tight ends more, using Sowers there. So I love what they did in the offseason. Still got a very good defense there. My only concern about the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's a big one, folks, I do think they'll be better without A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts, by the way, he said there's no entitlement issues on this team. I'm paraphrasing. He said that the other day. That's a straight shot at A.J. Brown. Got him out of the door here. Okay. Lane Johnson, the right tackle. He missed 8 games last year. This guy's, 36, 37 years old. Missed 8 games last year. They were 3-5 when he was not playing there. Do not like their depth there at that particular position. Okay, we're going to have to see how that plays out this season. If they can overcome that, get back to running the football, quicker releases out of remember, they've got this also very young offensive coordinator coming out of Green Bay. We'll see how that works out as well. It's also another coordinator here for Jalen Hurts. Okay, so he is getting some criticism here, and this magazine wrote this up about Jalen Hurts here, and it's a pretty good little write-up here. So I can't go all praise. I got to give you a little bit of the criticisms. They said there's a lot of blame to go around for their disappointing season. Hurts seemed to get off the lion's share of it, which usually goes in the way of the quarterbacks. Hurts was the subject of a critical ESPN.com piece that blamed him for many of the offensive problems. The story said he pushed back on changes that would diversify the scheme, including lining up under center because he's not very tall. And I've said that before. Claimed he was reluctant to let it rip at times, particularly against zone coverage and play calls to an excessive degree. Hurts will be playing for his 5th offensive coordinator in 5 seasons this year. His contract doesn't expire until 2028 season, but this is the last year of guaranteed money. They could move off him. Now, that being said, folks, about Jalen Hurts, I think he won't feel obligated to throw the ball to A.J. Brown. When Matt Stafford lost Calvin Johnson, his stats got better. Not saying Calvin Johnson, the great Calvin, was a diva demanding the ball, but he's such a big-time receiver, you feel obligated to give him the ball, whether he's double covered or not, somebody else is open. So I do think, excuse me, on that perspective, he's going to be better. On the other hand, again, with the Lane Johnson stuff. So I'm projecting Lane Johnson's going to miss. He is going to miss some time here. And I do think the Eagles will hurt. They will hurt because of this. But I love their draft. I love their offseason. I like this 3rd-round pick, this tackle, Markel Bell. Maybe they could find a way to put him in to fill in. He's a rookie out of Miami, 3rd-round pick. Their first 3 picks are bam, 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 bam. Possibly if they can find a way to put him in at right tackle if and when Lane Johnson gets hurt this season and they don't have a collapse like that offensively, okay? So, 10 offensive players coming back from last year, 9 on defense. They're a pretty stacked team. But the Lane Johnson thing is a big deal. So I've got them going 10-7. 10-7. I'm projecting that. I'll give you the full standings of the NFC East here in just a few minutes. Note that 10-7 for the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay. All right. I'm on to the Washington Commanders, last team in the NFC East. Now, Dan Quinn, I've already made that bold prediction. I think he'll get fired this year. Defense was, by the way, other than the Eagles, the NFC East defense was horrible last year. Giants 29th. Dallas historically bad during stretches last year. 32nd in the league, the Washington Commanders. The defense got old overnight. They got old overnight. I like Sonny Styles. I like this defensive edge rusher they got. Owen. I want to say they got him over from the Seattle Seahawks here. Awu, whatever his name is. You got guys like Deron Payne and whatnot. But still, Okay. And they lost their center, Tyler Baez or whatever. So I'm just not sure about them. Here's the thing, Jalen Daniels. I mentioned this for the draft that year. He got hurt at Alabama. Against Alabama when he was at LSU his last year there. He got hurt his rookie year, came back. They played great, got all the NFC Championship game once he came back. Got hurt, gruesome elbow injury. I don't know how that his elbow did what it did when he just hit it like that, but he got hurt last year. He's an injury-prone player. Cliff Kingsbury, I like that combination, but he did not see eye to eye with the general manager there, okay? He agreed to move off. So they moved off him. Dan Quinn, as I mentioned before, got to the Super Bowl. Once he lost Kyle Shanahan with the Atlanta Falcons, things progressively got worse. He gets fired. Did not think he was a great hire from the get-go. Thought it was probably a little bit of a fluke. It turns out to be a fluke last year. So now you're looking at a team. They got some new pieces there on defense. I'm just not sure. The over and under is 7.5. I've actually got them going 5-12, the same as they did last year. So he could get fired mid to late season. Maybe he gets fired past Thanksgiving or something like that. Man, I really like Jalen Daniels. Listen, he can just go off this year with this new staff and coordinator and set all kinds of records and win MVP of the league. And I could be totally wrong. And if I eat my words, I'll eat them. I always own it, folks. I always own it. So, all right, here's how I got it. I've got the Giants winning the NFC East this year. I know this is crazy talk, right? But I just like the fact that they're getting a lot of teams on short weeks. They're getting some tough games at home. I like their depth on the offensive line. I like their massive depth on the defensive line. I like the head coach and offensive coordinator there. I like the second-year quarterback. He don't need to be a celebrity quarterback, Jackson Dart. Maybe he's got the memo. Stop trying to be a celebrity quarterback. We know what Bill Parcells, the former Giants coach, said about that. That being said, I got them winning it at 11-6. I've got the Eagles beating the Cowboys in a tiebreaker and at 10-7, finishing second, so they'll be in line to get a playoff. And I got Dallas at 10-7, finishing third. So I've got to fill out the rest of my divisions and see how Dallas plays out. You know, whether they get into the playoffs as a wild card or not. And I got the lowly Washington Commanders at 5-12. Okay, so again, Giants start a new trend here back again, and they win the NFC East 11-6. Philly 10-7. Dallas 10-7. Finished third. Philly beats them in the tiebreaker, and Washington 5-12. Dan Quinn is gone. Okay, now I want to do two divisions. Didn't get time. My time management was horrible, but this will be better as we get closer to the NFL season. Even if I got to take another day off of my work and get this done, I love putting my predictions in here. Okay, now back to college. I mentioned that I was going to finish up my predictions here with the Big Ten, and I did not. I gave you some hints of where I was going at the other day, but I did not finish out that. My bad, folks. But that's where I'm going here to the Big Ten here. I mentioned Ohio State the other day. Ohio State, number 6. Did I say? Yeah, talked about this a little bit on Thursday with the Mad New Yorker. Ohio State, 6th ranked, toughest schedule in the country. No, it's not a walk in the park like it has been in the past, like the criticisms they've had. I mentioned the fact they played Texas in week 2. They got to play at Indiana on October 17th. They had that bye week on the 24th, and then on Halloween they play at USC. Probably get a Halloween or get USC off that bye week, but then they got to play Oregon at home. Oregon, Very good defense, shady offensive line. They could lose that game. I think they'll beat them they'll beat them up in Ohio State. But I do think they'll lose Texas early in the season, and they'll lose one of these games. Either it be Indiana or Oregon or even Michigan, but Michigan's at home, so I think they'll beat Michigan this year. Now, but I said I do like Julian saying I like this offense here. Just Bo Jackson, Jeremiah Smith. That's running back, receiver. Line's pretty good. I do think that they will play, and I mentioned this the other day, but I did not clarify it. They're going to play this Indiana team, which Indiana, they don't have any tough opponents until at Nebraska. I don't even know how do you really want to consider Nebraska a tough opponent? They don't play that until October 10th. I mean, they got a lot of North Texas, Howard, Western Kentucky, Northwestern, at Rutgers on the 3rd, at Nebraska on the 10th. They got, and then, like I said, Ohio State at home on the 17th, but they play at Michigan the next week. So I do think they'll lose one of them games. I think they'll beat Ohio State in the regular season. But they may lose to Michigan the very next week because they may be out of gas. You see what I'm saying? That being said, they have their bye week on the 7th. They play USC at home at Washington. They can lose at Washington. So, listen, and I mentioned the fact they have this Josh Hoover, this transfer from TCU at quarterback, and you look at their returning starters, starter-level players, going back to 9 starter-level players on defense, 8 on offense, okay? And I know they lost Mendoza. They lost 2 good receivers and a good running back, but they're supposed to have another good running back as well. I think they're going to make it back to the Big Ten championship with 1 or 2 losses. They're going to play Ohio State again. They'll beat Ohio State at home in the regular season, but I've got Ohio State getting into the playoff by beating Indiana. So they beat Indiana back in the Big Ten championship game. Had the opposite prediction last year, which I was right. Now, this was once the postseason started, but so I do think Ohio State will win the Big Ten this year, okay? Obviously, I still think Indiana will probably find a way to get into the playoff because they're going to beat Ohio State in the regular season. I think they'll beat Michigan in the regular season. Cincinnati may very well be the best coach in the country as far as X's and O's and whatnot. He's off to a very good start. Talking a little trash last week about the SEC, and he's got a cakewalk schedule. I'm surprised he's doing that. But, hey, you go 16-0. He's got 2 losses since he's been at Indiana. That's how well he has coached. Remember, they had a very good season in 24, but they lost their bowl game. Got cleaned up pretty well in Notre Dame in 24. That being said, I have them in the playoff, and Ohio State will win the Big Ten. As far as playoff bubble teams, I have not went over Oregon's schedule. Biggest knock on Oregon, new starters on the offensive line. That's always a big bugaboo there. But total, I mean, they're going to have 6 starter-level players back on offense. They'll have 9 on defense. They're going to be led by their defense. Like Dante Moore, but he might be getting happy feet this year with the new starters. So they could lose at USC early in the season because they played them within the first month when you're breaking in those new starters there on that particular and they also play Ohio State and Michigan back-to-back. So they're probably still going to be a bubble-level team for me, this Oregon team led by, Dan Lanning and whatnot. But we'll see. We'll see. So those are the teams that I think that'll obviously Ohio State's going to make it, okay? Oregon, bubble team, and I definitely think Indiana will be in the playoff here. So as far as the rest of the Big Ten is concerned, there's too much questions about maybe Michigan can. But, listen, Underwood, big learning curve. Let's see if he takes that big under Kyle Whittingham, takes that big jump. And maybe I'll come back to Michigan at another time and talk Michigan. And as far as USC, listen, I don't know. They might move on from Lincoln Riley. I mean, a lot of people saying they're going to be a much better team this year. I'll have to believe it when I see it. And we will do once we get closer to Labor Day. I want to try to schedule something with the Mad New Yorker, and we will go over the playoff predictions like we did last year. Hopefully, it'll be a little bit more crisp. We was doing it at a restaurant last year. We'll record something somewhere and give you our entire playoff predictions. Got the crap beat out of me last year before the season because I thought Clemson would be much better. But as of right now, my team's definitely in the playoffs. Georgia, Texas, LSU, that's 3. Okay, Indiana and Ohio State, that's 5. So, like I said, Oregon likely will get in there. I'll double check Oregon as we get closer to the season and things start. Okay, all right. Now, let's see. Do I have any more notes that I need to take care of while we're here listening? Like I said, like it's a quick recap here. I do think that, and it's looking like Shedeur Sanders may very well win the job there. He very well may win that job. Shedeur Sanders win that job up there in Cleveland. Now, hey, listen, we got to see the actual games. We'll see these preseason games. Let's see how this thing plays out. I was watching some highlights of Luther Burden catching a football from the Bears. A lot of people talking about how difficult the Bears' schedule is and way it's made out. I'll have to break that down at another time. That's going to be a very difficult division also to break down as well. Loaded team. We'll see if Caleb Williams makes that big step this year. But I do think they'll play well. I think they're going to play a lot of more swagger. It's the second year in the system. We'll see how they play out. Okay, now, if you like the show, share the show on 50 minutes in. And hopefully, like I said, I have my man Brady, another one of my riders, come in. We'll talk a little bit of South Carolina football. And I'll tell him straight up, hey, listen, if you watch my clips, it is what it is. I think Shane Beamer is going to be another one of those coaches at the SEC that will be fired at the season's end. Now, maybe Lenore Sellers takes off and he carries them, kind of like a Jaden Daniels in the NFL with the Commanders. We'll see how that plays out. But I'll tell him, hey, that's my prediction. Hopefully I'm wrong. But we'll see how it plays out. Okay. All right, folks. If you like the show, share the show. Please subscribe to the Real Sports Scope YouTube channel if you have not already. So have a good Monday night, everybody. I'll be back here live Thursday with the Mad New Yorker. We'll go over some of these things here on the Real Sports Scope.